pay attention, you weaken yourself before you've even begun. If you show your intelligence too early, power does not reside in being correct. It resides in being invisible until it is too late. And in a world that is so fixated on being smart, the person who acts stupid wields the sharpest knife. To the common man, this will sound like sabotage. You spend decades honing your intellect, studying, paying attention, and then what? You play dumb. But the Machiavellian looks at it differently. He looks at the fact that intellect is only worthwhile when it is employed at the optimal time. To reveal it too early is to show your cards in a game of poker before the wager is made. You gain not respect but targets on your back. Individuals begin to compete with you. They feel threatened. They quietly undermine. They initiate counters. They talk behind your back. Why? Because you showed your greatest weapon too soon, your mind. The Machiavellian reverses this. He allows the world to think he's naive, think he's mediocre, think he's inattentive, and as they think, he observes, he tallies, he moves closer to their vulnerabilities, because there's a certain kind of quiet that only the strategic hold, and it's not produced out of ignorance, it's produced out of restraint. Sun Tzu used to say, "Appear weak when you are strong." Machiavelli lived this in a much nastier way. He didn't just seem weak, he made other people think they could control him. And then the minute they relaxed, he tore them down from the inside out. This strategy is effective because of ego inflation. When individuals feel they're the most intelligent in the room, they let their guard down, they begin to brag, they divulge secrets, they display blemishes, and who's observing all this quietly? The alleged fool. That's why the strategy is so powerful. It elicits candor from adversaries. It bursts the balloon from competitors. It relaxes their defenses. It makes your last action appear miraculous. Although you had schemed from the beginning, you're the last one they anticipate, which means that you're the most effective one. You've noticed it before in negotiations, in relationships, in politics. The quiet one, the one who asks really stupid questions, the one who allows others to go first, the one who listens rather than talks, and then, when the moment arrives, says one single thing that kills the whole conversation. That ain't luck. That's a person who's learned selective display. They don't show their hand until showing it wins the war at a single stroke. This appears in the executive, who speaks little in meetings, but closes the deal with a single counteroffer. The quiet friend who hears everyone's business, because he never breaks in. The investor, who acts as if he is unsure, until the valuation falls, and then buys it all. These men are not idiots. They simply wear the mask better than anyone else, because they understand what most don't. People undervalue what they don't fear. So if you wish to be feared, begin by not being feared at all. This is not about acting stupid. It's pretending that you have less control than you do, until they make the opening, and then making it very obvious that you were never in the dark, that you were just letting everyone else get to the point where they thought you were. If the world were rational, being smart would be your biggest weapon. But this isn't a rational world. It is a world that rewards control, and control doesn't come from showing your brilliance. It comes from withholding it until the room is too blind to stop you. This is where most people lose the game before it begins. They're too loud, too eager to prove themselves, too emotionally tied to the idea of being seen as smart. But Machiavelli would tell you, a man who reveals his cards too early is teaching his opponents how to defeat him. The true game is not about visibility, but invisibility until leverage is yours. There's a certain type of intelligence Machiavelli would develop, not the one that gets high marks on tests, but the type of intelligence that reads a room like a battlefield. He knew that people don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can't read, and what makes someone unreadable. They don't react. They don't rush to speak. They don't flinch when insulted. They don't correct others when wrong. They don't try to win arguments. They let the other person bury themselves. This is calculated stupidity, allowing others to think they're running the play, to feel the smartest person in the room while you're a step ahead of them, quietly taking the pieces. It's not about remaining hidden forever. It's about waiting for the silence to become unbearable, and then shattering it with accuracy. We presently exist in a society where everybody is hell-bent on being right, where speaking the most is equated with winning, where to remain silent is translated into weakness. And it is precisely for this reason that the strategy of strategic stupidity is so effective, because when there's so much fragile ego floating around and such an eruption of noise, the man who speaks less is reduced to a black hole of mystery. He's judged, misunderstood, laughed at perhaps, but beneath that, he's completely in command of perception. Because here's the trick: folks project their fantasies and their fears onto what they don't know. Once you are no longer readable, you become reflective. They begin to reveal themselves, not themselves about you, and that's how Machiavellians gather information. He allows others to reveal themselves through what they believe about him. While they're attempting to play chess, he's looking at their fingers, their breath, their tells, waiting to sabotage their entire board. Picture you enter a room full of men, posturing, debating, arguing, each man attempting to be the most alpha, the smartest, the most dominant. You remain silent. You respond only when spoken to directly. You do not give your opinion. You listen. See what follows. One man will begin to talk excessively, attempting to prove himself to you. Another will think you shy and lower his guard in front of you. Another will attempt to deceive you, believing you are gullible. All of them expose their plans. None of them have any idea you're taping everything. This strategy is ruinously powerful in negotiation. If you seem too clever, others become defensive. They mobilize counter-arguments. They withhold information. But if you ask a stupid question, they tell you more than they ought to. They reveal internal vulnerabilities. They show their urgency. The more you seem to not understand, the more they try to persuade you, and the more authority you accumulate. And then, once they think you're harmless, you make your offer based on all that they stupidly divulged. It's also powerful in social structures. Ever been with a pack where everybody wishes to be the alpha? It's draining, and the actual alpha is rarely ever the one talking the most. Acting unconcerned, slow to engage, or slightly stumbling takes you out of the pecking order long enough to see it in the open. And after you watch who's attempting to control whom, who requires attention, who gossips, who fawns, you know precisely where to put pressure to turn the structure on its head, not by playing along, but by shutting it down with a quiet shift they didn't anticipate. In romance or seduction, this is where many make their worst mistake. They try to impress too fast. They speak like interviewees. They try to prove their worth. But the most desirable man is elusive, not dumb but disinterested, not clueless but unreadable, pretending not to care, not to notice, not to compete, triggers more obsession than trying to win them ever will. Men fall in love with the ones they can't understand, not the ones who put all their cards on the table within the first 5 minutes. But feigning dumbness is not the same as passivity. It is not weakness. It is a disguise donned by someone who is observing everything. The quiet man can be mistaken for the coward only if he is indeed not listening. But the Machiavellian never sleeps. Every sentence you utter in his presence becomes a weapon. Every assumption you make lines his next action. He can be slow, but he's already calculated how to take you down while you were too caught up in justifying yourself. So keep this in mind. Intelligent people who need to prove it lose. Intelligent people who can pretend to be stupid win. And the longer you are able to wear the mask, the deeper your blade gets the first time you ever get to use it. There is a harsh irony to being intelligent. The instant you demonstrate it, you begin to lose mastery over it. Why? Because demonstrated intelligence is a target. It is something that others seek to test, invalidate, or destroy. It provokes competition, insecurity, and opposition. But when intelligence is concealed, it is a shadow, something that people feel but are unable to track. They are uncertain where the threat is emerging. They are unsure when it will strike. That is not weakness. That is dominance in disguise. Imagine 2 men entering a room. One enters proud, polished, keen-eyed, obviously intelligent. People instantly assess him. Some are impressed. The majority prepare themselves against him. The second enters, looking ordinary, relaxed, perhaps even a bit uncomfortable. He doesn't correct, doesn't boast, doesn't indicate power. What does he do? People dismiss him. They let their guard down around him. They talk openly. They reveal insecurities, secrets, ambitions. They let their guard down. But the second man is really more perceptive than the first. He's employing the guise of low threat to gain access to actual leverage. Machiavelli would say this is entering by the back door and exiting king, because what's true is, you can't command a room you first haven't vanished from. This strategy is not so much about remaining silent, it's more about strategically crafting your presence with the taciturnity of opinion. Don't state your beliefs as commandments. Ask questions that make them share theirs instead. Allow them to speak. Allow them to believe they're teaching you. And then, with subtle misdirection or one insightful whisper, you turn their own words against them. That is power. You never argued. You allowed them to dig the hole. You can resort to selective confusion. Strategically, not knowing something is one of the most piercing strategies you can employ. You lead them into more lengthy explanations. You reveal how well or poorly the other person knows their own position. You pretend not to know, so they'll feel more in charge. And most importantly, you allow them to instruct you on what they know, assuming they're smarter. But behind the scenes, you're gathering psychological fingerprints, their rhythm, their arrogance, their blind spots. They believe they've earned your respect, but really all they've done is provided you with just the tool to tear them down later. Let others lead, while you guide. Intelligent people have the tendency to want to lead everything, but the master strategist knows that the best way to lead is by seeming to follow. Let others shoot first. Let them decide, let them think they're in charge. Then, with a gentle push here, a subtle hint there, a pause that happens to make them doubt their strategy, you find yourself maneuvering the result without anyone realizing it. That's not manipulation. That's rule of invisibility. This one is Machiavellian, through and through. Let them mock you. Let them knock you. Let them jeer. Let them scorn. Don't defend. Don't justify. Don't respond. Why? Because each insult they hurl, each joke, each self-satisfied comment is an admission. It reveals to you what they fear, what they hold dear, where their pride resides, where their defenses are weakest, and while they are laughing, you sharpen your knife, sleely, quietly, until the time arrives when you reveal to them that you were not the fool, you were the listener who knew it all. There's an old saying, he who seems harmless evades the guard. Social structures are constantly on the lookout for threats. The ambitious man, the boisterous man, the intelligent man. They are immediately marked for attention. They are monitored. They are neutralized. They are shut out. But the fool just wanders in. Nobody is expecting him. Nobody feels the need to block him. And that's exactly why he succeeds. He evades resistance. He earns trust by default. He becomes a confidant, a safe presence, until he's the only one who knows everything, and everyone else is vulnerable. By the time they realize the threat, it's too late, because the hierarchy they try to defend has already shifted quietly in his favor. This tactic also becomes deeply personal in how others emotionally respond to you. When you're just too polished, too perfect, too obnoxiously impressive, subconsciously people pull away. You're not safe. You're not someone they can identify with. But when you show soft edges, when you look uncertain, unrushed, even a little aloof, you encourage people to lean in a bit closer. They let go of their perfection. They reveal their real face. They think you're someone they can handle or fix, or outsmart. The most influential person in the room is not usually the one speaking the loudest, or shining the brightest, or correcting the loudest. It's the man observing, the man assessing, the man who acts dumb because he's already scripted the ending. There is a type of genius that does not require visibility. It does not require accolades. It does not pursue notice because it understands something that most individuals never realize. The more predictable you are, the simpler you are to ruin. The more amazing you appear to be, the quicker they come for your crown. After you've led people on to believe you're dumb, they cease concealing themselves. They talk more than they ought. They behave careless in your presence. They disregard your actions, belittle your aspirations. They sheathe their blades while you hone yours. This is when you attack, not vocally, not emotionally, not publicly, but with one stroke they never saw coming, because in their imagination you were harmless, and when they reflect later, they won't be able to track how it occurred, because you made it appear as nothing. This strategy isn't theory. History is a cemetery of men who underestimated the wrong fool. Julius Caesar behaved like a populist hero. His political opponents ridiculed his melodrama. Then he crossed the Rubicon, and Rome was his. Vladimir Lenin was written off as irrelevant by the Tsar's regime. He studiously watched, waited, cultivated support, and destroyed the monarchy in one revolution. Li Bang, the founder of China's Han Dynasty, was the village drunk and clown. His rivals believed he was not fit to lead. He became emperor. What do they all share in common? They feigned to be below the game until they controlled the entire board. To put this into practice, you have to hesitate in giving your opinions, allow others to go first, make them feel dominant. Do not correct their mistakes. Simply observe. People tend to reveal more when they believe you are not intelligent enough to notice. Respond less. Teach your face to say nothing. If insulted, do not blink. If complimented, do not smile. If challenged, do not flinch. Make them fill the silence. Make them show you who they believe you are, and keep your true thoughts hidden behind silence. Pose questions that sound simple. Rather than delivering sounding intelligent statements, pose sounding obvious questions. Observe how individuals either say too much or disclose something they did not intend to. Easy questions tend to prompt difficult reveals. Allow them to think you're more sluggish than you are. Don't hurry to respond. Deliberately take longer to respond than you should. Get them to believe you're hesitating. Indecisive, they'll either become overconfident or disclose their hand in a bid to steer you. You're not lost. You're baiting them in. Most want to avoid being misunderstood, but a master strategist invites it, because the more mistaken they are about you, the more you gain. A dangerous man receives resistance. A foolly-looking man receives access to information, to feeling, to blind spots, to trust never acquired but always usable. The objective isn't to be liked or respected or even feared. It's to be forgotten until it's too late. If you're as smart as you say you are, you need to ask yourself, are you wasting your genius trying to convince people who don't count? Or are you concealing your genius long enough to employ it where it actually makes a difference? Machiavelli's counsel is blunt. Fools are mocked, geniuses are attacked, but the man who conceals both is crowned. So keep your mouth shut, let them gossip, let them laugh, let them drop their guard, and then kill the game in one silent